Hello everyone, my name's FlareBlitzed and welcome back to Eislyn's Apocalypse. We've seeked out one ending on one route and another ending along the other route of the game. Now we're going to be trying to find the other endings in both routes and then find the secret ending afterwards. So the first thing we're going to do is going to find the police, learn more about the Guardians, try to stop him. Let's not be approved of his decision making. No! Memora shouted as she ran towards him. She pushed him to get him away from the button, but he'd already pushed it. Tremors shook the ground. Memora shivered, wondering how many people just died. Warren, on the other hand, looked at her with disgust. Why did you do that? You don't trust me at all, do you? Warren? Memora felt sick, but Warren simply brushed her past and left the room. Silently, Memora followed him out of the base and looked up at the sky. He definitely is a stubborn one, isn't he? A giant pillar of light blazed above Memora. Warren seemed unfazed. Memora started to follow Warren back towards the fray, but she was pulled back into her own memories. Pulled back into her own memories, you say? Reflection. Memora wasn't born in Memora. She was born in a faraway town. Her parents were both Guardians and had left Memora. As she grew older, she began to dream of Memora. At first, she had no idea why it was happening. Why did she feel like she needed to find this place in her dreams so badly? Was she going crazy? Thankfully, when she finally spoke to her parents about it, they recognized what it was immediately: the call of Eislyn. Apparently, all prospective Guardians felt this call, this pull to a specific place in Memora. They hadn't realized that someone who had been born and lived beyond the borders of Memora would feel it. They explained to her what it meant to be a Guardian. Her parents themselves didn't want to return to Memora. They left for a reason after all, to pursue dreams of their own. So they decided to let her stay with a relative that still lived in Memora, to test the waters, see if this was what she wanted. When she saw Memora for the first time, she thought it the most beautiful and peaceful place on earth. In the future, that is not to be the case. And it felt like a piece of herself that she didn't even know had been missing finally fell into place. She pledged herself to Memora and Eislyn then and there. Memora ends up staying in a house near another young Guardian. His name was Warren. She followed him around and trained with him. With all the things he could do, she thought he was the coolest person ever. Though they were the same age, she really looked up to him. As she grew up, she worked harder at her training, her education and volunteering to make Memora an even better place. Soon she was on equal footing with Warren. There wasn't that much for Guardians to do most of the time, except keep up with their training and watch the city. Manifestations of Nordmir's will were rare, and dealt with swiftly on the outskirts of the city. Warren and Memora liked to talk strategy for dealing with monsters as they walked to school. One day, I want to take down Nordmir for good. Memora agreed with him. She wanted a future where Memora wouldn't always be under the threat of darkness. For most Guardians, their guardianship was a secondary thing, a task they completed for the sake of the city they loved. For Warren and Memora, it was a way of life. It was the primary subject for most of their conversations, what they spent the majority of their time on. Looking back on those memories, she realized just how badly Warren had always wanted to be a hero. And obviously that meant making the most drastic decisions. A scream shot through the air. Memora, who had been vaguely walking towards the battlefront, snapped her head around to see what was going on. A man, a civilian, was running with a dozen monsters chasing after him. Memora recognized him from some pictures she had been shown yesterday. It was Mr. Thorndyke. Snapping into action, Memora dashed over to him and shouted for him to duck. She quickly struck at the monsters following him with her light bearer. Those that she had missed chittered angrily and tried to surround Thorndyke and Samara. "You're one of Earth's guardians, aren't you?" Samara didn't have time to respond. Unlike the monsters at the factory, these things knew what they were doing, and they were determined to kill. They coordinated their attacks, the light bearers singeing their skin as she blocked them. One of them leaped at Thorndyke and bit his arm. Thorndyke yelled and shook it off of him. Samara quickly let out a burst of light with the light bearer, causing the monsters to flinch back and push Thorndyke out of a circle. "Run, quick!" Thorndyke didn't question her. He ran down the street and she stood between him and the pursuing monsters. Thorndyke most likely becoming one of them because of the infection. Some quick swings of her sword claimed 2 more of them. They looked at one another wearily. Samara guessed they hadn't expected to run into someone quite so skilled. They backed off, heading down a side street. Samara turned and quickly ran after Thorndyke. It didn't take her long to catch up with him, considering he was nervously looking down each prospective path to see if there were any monsters nearby. "You're under arrest, I hope you know." Thorndyke seemed resigned to it. They started walking, Samara grasping his arm so he wouldn't run away. Not that he seemed to want to. He kept cursing the names of what Samara believed must be 2 monsters. If there was any doubt about Thorndyke being involved with monsters before, it was all cleared away now. Samara felt angry yet curious. The Guardians seemed to have made some headway with the monsters. Most of them were dead or fleeing from the light. The Guardians were shouting to each other and hunting them down. Samara escorted Thorndyke to a holding cell in the police station. The police station, even the cells were mostly empty. There were a couple of officers there and a guardian. They explained to Samara that it wasn't safe to hold prisoners here, that they were trying to evacuate the city. Samara explained who the prisoner was and why she had to question him, and they decided to give her a few minutes. She sat down on a stool in front of a cell. It was strange to think just yesterday she had done this with Jared Varden. Hopefully he was well out of the city by now, so. "Want to tell me what happened?" "That monster betrayed me." Samara waited for him to continue. Thorndyke origin. Thorndyke stared into the darkness of the cell. Honestly, he of all people should have seen this coming. He was a liar and a crook after all. How could he not see how the monsters had been deceiving him? But that was it, wasn't it? He so badly wanted to believe. Dreams are the killers of reality, and reality the killer of dreams. It was no secret that Memora was a special place. The ground was incredibly fertile, so much so that it was much more difficult to fall at rising crops than it was to succeed. The flowers within the city limits promoted healing to an almost supernatural degree. The veins of ore in the nearby mountains were incredibly rich and seemed to never run out. And the air always smelled clean, even in the industrial parts of the city. With crime being extremely low as well, it was an ideal place to live. Thorndyke, despite being a successful criminal, was drawn to it as well. He had long wanted to know the secrets behind this perfect city. After researching Memora for a while, he started to believe this mysterious being known as Eislyn might actually exist. There were some fairy tales surrounding her, most of which spoke to her as being a human, or someone who looked human at least. But there were some older texts that referred to her as something grander. They called her a being that came from beyond the stars. The more he looked into it, the more he was entranced. If there really was an alien celestial being residing under Memora, and this being held the power to make a utopia on Earth, what could that power be capable of in human hands? He began to obsess over the idea. It was something unknown, mysterious. The first bit of magic that Thorndyke had ever believed in. He dreamed of harnessing that power, shaping it to his will. And then one day, he obtained a chance to act on his dream. The monsters. Thorndyke went out to the countryside one night. He could explain why, but he felt drawn to go there. In the night beneath an endless expanse of stars, he felt something watching him. It made him feel breathless, exhilarated. Something was there, in the ever darkness high above, and it was focused solely on him. It spoke to the depths of his mind. It would help him get what he wanted. Thorndyke would be able to transfer the power of the being known as Eislyn into a form that human beings could use. In exchange, it asked for his help in building an army of its own, so that it could take over Memora, wrestle it from the control of Eislyn. Since the plan benefited them both, Thorndyke agreed. He was excited to see what would happen. Obviously the monsters just told him that, but in the end the monsters would just use him to get metal. And so a tiny creature appeared in the field before him. Thorndyke picked it up and was told its name was Gall. Thorndyke raised the creature, feeding its children so it might grow. Eventually he moved to Memora. Once he had purchased a steelworks factory, there below the factory, Gall helped him to steal bits and pieces of Eislyn's power and bind it into a unique mixture of metals and chemicals that could hold it. Gall promised that, in time when the city was under the control of the monsters he was creating, they would be able to convert all the power Eislyn had instead of just those tidbits, and so they bided their time. Samara. Despair scene. My accomplice, Miss Nightingale, was also working with this creature from beyond our world. She had a vendetta against the people of Memora for some reason. Once I arrived, she helped supply a Gall with children. So I imagine that the other route of an answer would also lead to learning about Miss Nightingale rather than Mr. Thorndyke. The monsters tricked us. I thought they simply wanted Memora, but they want all of humanity dead. They killed Miss Nightingale, and then they tried to kill me. I managed to escape using a tiny bit of the power I had taken from being known as Eislyn. I had kept it with me as a precaution, thankfully. We need to get out of the city as soon as possible. Monsters have been planning this attack for many years. Samara's head hurts. She had been worried about the invasion having started months ago, but years? This really had been over from the start. This must have been why Eislyn felt weak. Thorndyke and this monster had been stealing her energy, her light. Samara heard footsteps approaching the cell. I know. We need to leave. She turned her head and saw Warren standing there. She felt her mouth open slightly in surprise, and then she closed it. Warren, could you help me escort this prisoner to the... Without a word, Warren drew a gun and shot Thorndyke in the head. Yikes. Samara stood speechless as his body hit the floor and Warren kept walking. What? Warren! What? Where are you going? Where do you think? I'm going to destroy that wretched child. What? This wasn't like him. He wasn't making any sense. Was he really getting ready to kill a child? The look on his face chilled her, but it seemed distant somehow. Was this really the Warren she knew and loved? She gritted her teeth. What is wrong with you? First you kill a man before hearing his side, now this? Come to your senses, Warren. You're the one that needs to come to your senses. What does it matter? Nordmere is like a god. Do you think it cares about a few lives? Do you think it would let that stand in its way? It's immortal and endlessly destructive. If we don't stop it here, it will be the end of us all. This thing came from the stars. It's a god, and history will call me the God Slayer. And he spoke those words, his face started to melt and morph. Samara took a step back, confused and frightened. You think a few people are going to stop me from my destiny? Who cares what it takes? I shall slay the god. Of course you would be one of the monsters. But Warren... He didn't look human anymore. Samara gasped and covered her face with her hands. Tears started to fall down her cheeks. His eyes were blazing like burning holes, and they were directed at her. "Nothing is going to stop me, not even you." He lunged at her. She dodged it easily, adrenaline coursing through her now. "Warren, please, you're losing yourself." It was no use. He continued lunging for her, his attacks getting quicker and quicker as he used to his new form, the form of a monster. "Not you." Samara sobbed. There was almost no delay in between his attacks now. Pretty soon he would be faster than her. "I'm sorry." Oh dear. I thought it was a bit of an annoyance. A clang resounded heavily in the air. A thump. A bright light faded. "So that's a light bearer." Samara fell to her knees and welped in the darkness. Bright red liquid spread across the floor. I don't think blood is what you call bright red. Maybe a rich red? Slowly, tremors started to shake to the ground. In a daze, none of this feeling real, Samara left the station. Above there was a bright night sky, a green moon dripping acid. All the monsters looked up in awe of the light. She could see the other guardians, those who fought hard beside her to save the people of Memora, turn twisted and melt as madness descended on the city. The darkness came again. Samara didn't feel like fighting it anymore. The end. 3 of 4. That was definitely the badder route, but you do learn more about the lore of this game as you do that. Definitely. So, let's not go after Adeline then. So, to get to this part, you would simply choose to keep running and then get all the way to this part. So, I don't think I should just reintroduce that since we've already been at the beginning of the game. Just choose the other option. No. Let's not go after her. Insidious plans. I think we've already been through this. It seems the guardians of this city are far more destructive than I anticipated. We'll have to speed things up. I'll send some of our kin to pick up Adeline and take her to someplace safe. They can take out that friend of hers while they're there. As for me, I'm going to have some fun. Why don't you do so as well? You look like you need to relax. Heh. Rejoice, my kin, for our father shall soon have his revenge. Adeline. Adeline wandered through a teeming mass of monsters. Even though they were in panic, running like a flood through the streets, they parted to let her pass through. When that man attacked, when Jared looked at her after she spoke with that monster, it was like she was an alien being. She couldn't blame them. It had always been that way. In fact, she thought, Jared had been right to think of me that way. When my own life was on the line, I'd even think about him, or the repercussions he'd face if I took him into this stream of monsters. Once again, I put myself above everyone else. I really am one of them. There was a light at the end of the shadowy world she had walked into. She walked through it, wondering where she'd end up. The orphanage. Heh. I may as well tell them to leave the city. They might not know about the monsters yet. But when she entered, the orphanage was silent and dark. Did you guys evacuate already? That was for the best, she thought. She wandered around the familiar place, now a barren, lifeless husk. Maybe this isn't so bad, she thought. I'll just stay here until the end. She wondered what the city would look like tomorrow. And the children. The dead children now undead. As deformed monstrosities. The next room she entered containing a gathering of monsters. The sight of them struck Adeline to her core. She recognized them, all of them, even with their twisted deformities and expressions of horrificness and awe they fixed upon her. They were the orphans she had spent most of her life with. They crowded around her in a semicircle. I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't mean for you all to turn out like this. Her eyes began to spill over with tears. But this is how it was meant to be. They coerced. It was so surreal. The people she had known as individuals, each one different and full of life, now chanting as if they were one entity, just different beats of heart, but with the same imagination, the same goal. There's no differences between these monsters apart from their form. Now we are the same. We are like you. You great one who can wear the guise of a human girl. Once again, the guilt she felt was not telling anymore what was going on. Who she was welled up within her. At least they weren't dead, right? Or maybe this was worse. She sat down and hugged her knees. And this is where it becomes different from when Jared would enter the fray. Adrien stayed there for a while. The monsters kept watch and started to fuss over her. She couldn't take it anymore, so she left. In the distance she could hear monsters fighting. It was a war now, wasn't it? And Adrien and her kind was sure to win. She had never felt so alone in her life. But this was reality now. She'd have to get used to it. It wasn't that she thought the monsters were repulsive anyway. She'd always loved monsters and nightmares. Her heart ached at the thought of all the people who were probably dying right now. Maybe they would all just turn into monsters like the orphans. Maybe it was okay. She'd have a place soon where no one judged her, where she'd be understood, revered even. No, she didn't want this. No matter how much she tried to convince herself. She found joy in the macabre, but only because it didn't actually hurt people. She couldn't accept the hatred those monsters bore. She had no reason to hate anyone. She is a being of no malice. If they had come to coexist peacefully, if they wanted to stay in the shadows and just be friends with her, she would have been so happy. Instead, her dream had turned into a nightmare, and nightmares were nowhere near as pleasant when they invaded reality, But what could she even do? There was nothing she could do to fight, and soon there would be no one left to save. Hey. Eislyn again. Adrien's eyes widened. She knew this girl. I've been looking for you. Adrienne? Friend. You're... Adrien paused. She has never known this girl's name, though she had never been able to forget meeting her. This was the only person who had ever met Adrien without being unconsciously repulsed by her. My name's Eislyn. It's nice to officially meet you. Adrien gasped. You're Eislyn? You've heard of me then. From the fairy tale. Eislyn looked a bit surprised and then nodded. I heard that you were with Jared Varden. Is he here? No, we went our separate ways. I see. Eislyn, you're in danger. The monsters are after you and... How was she supposed to explain that the very purpose of her existence was to destroy Eislyn? Adrien bit her lip. I wouldn't be so sure about that. I doubt they know I exist. I don't know how much you know, but I'm not sure... but I'm not the Eislyn who is the soul of this city. I was named after her and I have a strong connection to her. Much like you do with Nordmere. Nordmere? Adrien had never heard that name before, but slowly the knowledge came. That was her father, the one who wished to destroy Memora. I'm sure everything that's been happening must be scaring you. Adrien was about to correct her and then realized maybe she was scared. Was that what this emotion was? She'd never really been scared before. She was starting to realize why the other orphans hadn't liked her, why people didn't like her, if she made them feel this way. Adrien? Are you okay? I'm supposed to destroy Memora. I know. I don't know how, and I don't know how to stop it. Do you want to? Adrien didn't know what to say at this point. Excuse me. She had told her that in the hopes that she would leave, but just like Jara, it didn't seem like she would heed her warning. It's okay really. Regardless of what happens, the Eislyn who lives below us and me will always love you no matter what. Why? How could you know that? Because I know what's coming. I don't blame you for it, and neither does the slumbering Eislyn, the soul of Memora. She sent me. She showed me how to find you. Really? The enemy I was created to destroy? We're not enemies. I'm sorry you got caught up in all this, and I'm really sorry I didn't seek you out sooner. I honestly think if things had panned out differently, we would have been friends. Do you want to be friends, Adrene? Even knowing what she was, even knowing what she was about to do to her, Eislyn wants to be friends with Adrene. It seemed like the sky got lighter, just a little. It must have been her imagination, but she was feeling a lot better. I have actually always wanted that. Me too. Is it actually possible to stop all of this? Do you know a way to save Memora? I think it's possible, and I think a good first step is to take you to meet the slumbering Eislyn. Is that really okay? She's been wanting to meet you. Okay, that sounds like a good plan. I think you'll like her. Oh dear, just as they turned around, a figure appeared before them, that strange man that had gone after Adrene earlier. Warren, who is now a demon. Warren? The man Eislyn called Warren took out a gun. Eislyn quickly moved in front of Adrene just as he shot at her. Eislyn! Eislyn fell to the ground. The man showed no remorse. He simply turned the gun towards Adrene next. Anyone who allies themselves with a... Before he could even finish his sentence, a barrage of monsters came to Adrene's aid. They swallowed him up into the darkness. Adrene held... So this is role rehearsal now. First it was Eislyn holding Adrene's hand, or body at the last episode that we did, where Gerald was also with us, but now it's the role reversal, where Eislyn was shot rather than Adrene. She was the only one. The only one who didn't hate her, and a human took her away. Father. Oh, that's right. Humans had darkness within them too. Why have I been fighting it for so long? She smiled. After all, Adrene had always loved her nightmares. And what was the difference between dreams and reality anyway? It was such a fragile barrier. She pushed it away. Ooh, this is definitely a darker side to Adrene now. It crumbled around her in a shower of silver sparks. The moon, such a humble, silvery hue, started to fill with acid and dripped down upon the landscape placidly. The plants glowed with luminous poison. A sharp sound, like the breaking of a metal cable holding a bridge upright, reverberated through the air, and everything on the streets started to rise up higher. Decorations glittering, adding to the atmosphere. Adrene raised her hand, and the entire building whipped around and flung itself across the city. Its now ruined base blossomed up into a ship as the acid from the moon filled and flooded the streets. That is not just any moon. That is an acidic moon. There's also a set of eyes in the sky, along with some openings in its cheek. That must be Nortmere. Laughing creatures frolicked in the burning liquid, battling at the objects and creatures floating above. It was so strangely serene. Adrene watched as her kin danced and flew above the city, captivated by the nightmare that was unfolding before their eyes. She had so much more she wants to do. Sharp metal piercing the sky, glittering like diamonds, pipes folded and twisted into forests, and lamplight glared and took form as phantoms that stalked the night. She smiled down upon her creation as father floated down from the sky. Well done. His blooming voice echoed across Memora and obliterated whatever fragments of Eislyn's influence had remained. And that is the fourth ending. 1 year later, the Earth had been completely reduced to ash and waste. With Eislyn gone, it hadn't been difficult, just a slow but steady march to the end. NaNoRenO celebrated his absolute victory. His children cheered, but after, NaNoRenO, having fulfilled his goal, felt empty. His grip on his children slackened. He had no more orders for them. Father hasn't spoken to me once this past week. It is so unlike him. Do you know, dear, what ails him? Yes, but I don't think I can explain it. Adeline walked away from the crowd of her kin. She instead walked towards the hulking mass that was NaNoRenO. I can feel it, too. The emptiness. She spoke the words very softly. A long-forgotten emotion flooded her heart and tears started to well up in her eyes. Without revenge. Without her. Who am I? Adrien looked up at him, a being from far away, a celestial creature that had travelled through stars. And yet this creature, like her, had once had hope and dreams, and destroyed any chance of them ever coming true. Adrien looked out across the vast wasteland and wondered who was feeling this tremendous sense of loss. Her or NaNoRenO. Over the last year had all grown so hazy. The anger was gone, the crazed, delirious joy was gone. Centuries of bitterness. She could feel NaNoRenO close his mind off, like a door slowly shutting. She felt like she had been easing back into herself for a while, and now a cord had been cut. She was fully of her own mind again. She could hear the crowds of her kin wailing and shrieking, uncomprehending why they had been deserted. Only Adrien understood it was because Father had nothing left to give. Eislyn. Adrien walked through the panicking masses, lost in her own heart. The things she had done, the people she had lost. The last year truly felt like a dream she had now woken up from. But unlike the nightmares of her youth, this one left behind a dark and twisted reality. There was no home to go back to, for anyone. She felt sorry for her kin, who were wasting away now, slowly disappearing without the support of their father. But she couldn't stop walking, on and on, through a never-ending dark landscape, through an ashy wasteland. The rest of Father's children faded away. Somehow, inexplicably, Adrien clung to life. She didn't know she was searching for. There we go. Perhaps she was just running away. Running away from NaNoRenO or herself. But just like before, running was a futile gesture. She slowed and stopped. She was so very tired. Alone in this silent world, she used what little was left of her power to build something. A small garden of flowers. They were old, decayed flowers, brittle ones, that crackled when you touched them. It wasn't much, but it was all she could do. She lay down among them and closed her eyes, one by one. Ah, this... I don't know why this has got tears to me. Honestly, this is actually really, really sad. I mean, the end of a world of sorts is very, very sad, but this is a fate worse than the next phase in life. Being the only being left. Being the only thing that exists. The only thing with a beating heart. They bloomed in a bright crimson hue. the world faded away. A dream felt someone reaching for her. She took her hand. Eislyn led her towards the light, and thus the earth was devoid of life. The end. 4 for 4. Final story unlocked. Ooh, final story, you say? But which is the route to that path? Yes, please. Many centuries ago, two celestial beings wandered the cosmos. Eislyn and NaNoRenO were quite content with one another's company as they flew across galaxies. There were endless things to see after all, and endless time to be filled. But one day everything changed. That was the day they found the Earth. They both thought it an absolutely beautiful world, since they had both been considering settling down there. NaNoRenO decided they should claim it for themselves, but Eislyn was hesitant. Part of the reason Eislyn had thought the Earth beautiful was because of the creatures that lived upon it, those that lived on land, swam through the sea, flew through the air, and the humans, who were capable of turning their dreams and nightmares into something tangible, art. Eislyn and NaNoRenO were two sides of the same coin. One was a dream, the other a nightmare. One was creation, the other destruction. Together they were capable of anything. They had never argued, never disagreed on anything. However, Eislyn knew that to claim the Earth would be to first destroy it, anything that gleamed, anything that lived. In order for them to raise their children, they would need a blank slate. And that tore at her heart. NaNoRenO grew more and more determined, however, stating they would never find a planet more suited to them. One day her words could not hold him back. So she took action. She descended upon the Earth and put up a barrier, one that no celestial being could cross. Alone for the first time, she channeled everything she had to protecting the people of this world. NaNoRenO, furious at her betrayal and the loss of this world, swore he would not leave until he destroyed Eislyn and the Earth with her. Eislyn, missing her mate and determined to protect the people of this precious planet, descended into a seemingly endless dream. The introduction of both Eislyns. Eislyn dreamed of a ruined world. There was nothing but ash and debris for as far as the eye could see, a purple shadow beneath a silver moon. As Eislyn's spirit wandered in the dream, she happened upon something that broke the monotony of the endless landscape. There was a girl lying amongst the decayed, brittle flowers. She looked so sad, Eislyn thought. This was the ending that we just achieved. She reached out to her and the flowers slowly started to gain colour. Eislyn realised she knew this girl. Just as they were about to touch, Eislyn woke up. She blinked awake. The dream had been so vivid it was a bit of a shock to return to reality. What a strange dream. Are you trying to tell me something, Eislyn? The world around her was silent and serene. That was how it always was as of late. The voice of the other Eislyn, the one who slept beneath Memora, had gone silent months ago. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Sometimes the slumbering Eislyn had to focus all her energy on guarding or protecting the city, but this time her absence did seem to scratch on for an unusually long time. Since the slumbering Eislyn was always dreaming, she often spoke to people through their dreams. In fact, with everyone but Eislyn herself, this was the only way she could communicate. Only Eislyn could actually dream, or actually hear the slumbering Eislyn's voice while she was awake. Although it didn't seem as though that dream came from Eislyn, It was almost as if the longing of that girl was calling out to her. A loneliness so deep that it actually reached across the void that normally only the slumbering Eislyn could cross. Eislyn snapped back to herself as golden sunlight flooded the kitchen. She had been moving mechanically while lost in her head and had opened the curtains in a daze. She blinked and turned away from the glare. Whilst pouring herself a bowl of cereal, she addressed her mother. I think I'm gonna go out today after all. It's such a beautiful day. Alright, just be sure to be back before dark. Her mother was sat on the opposite side of the table from Eislyn. She gave a sigh as she read the newspaper, and Eislyn knew it was because she was worried about Eislyn's father. He had been gone for several weeks already, working on a case so intently he couldn't come home. Mother said he hadn't done that since they had moved to Memora, and certainly not since Eislyn had been born. Eislyn wasn't sure how to feel about it. Mother was certainly worried about him. It wasn't that either of them believed him to be in any physical danger, but Mother worried he was taking the case too personally, and all the late nights might make him ill. As for Eislyn, she had a lot of faith in her father, and was sure that he would be able to get down to the bottom of whatever case he was working on. She often imagined him returning home, smiling and triumphant. After all, the more difficult the case, the more satisfaction he'd get from solving it. But she was also starting to miss him. See you later, Mum. Have a good day at work. You too, sweetie. Her mother waved goodbye in an absent sort of way. Still focused on her newspaper, Eislyn smiled. The beautiful streets of Memora were filled with people enjoying the summer air. If only if we could do that at this point in time. Eislyn had heard her father say before that this city was like a giant garden. Most cities did not have plants growing wild across every street and building like Memora did. Eislyn herself had never been to another city, but she couldn't imagine one being more lively than this. And of course, as far as she was aware, this city was the only one that had a soul of its own. The slumbering Eislyn, a soul that silently guided her whenever she needed. Eislyn knew that if the slumbering Eislyn wasn't speaking to her, then at least nothing was wrong. But the dream she just had seemed significant somehow, and she had learned long ago not to underestimate the value of dreams. She knew who the girl in her dreams was, sort of. She met her at an orphanage last year, and her name was Adarine? Oh, for goodness sakes, I keep giving her different pronunciations of her name. She felt a connection to her when they met, like they were kindred spirits, yin and yang. In a way, the slumbering Eislyn and Nightmare are duality resemblances. And now this child Eislyn and Adarine, or whatever her name actually is, are also dualities. Both of opposite sides of the same coin. Both serving different purposes, but yet able to be friends under the right circumstances. Eislyn hadn't spoken to her since then. That part of town brought back sad memories after all. But she thought under the circumstances that it was time to pay her a visit. Hello? There were quite a few faces she recognised from a year ago at the orphanage. She smiled at them. Hello there, can I help you? The lady that came to greet her was also someone Eislyn recognised, though she didn't know her last name. Is a girl by the name of Adarine here? The lady hesitated. Actually, no, she hadn't come here in a while. Oh. A year ago, another child went missing. Because of the slumbering Eislyn's instructions, she was able to learn that the child had been killed and brought to the attention of the staff here and the police. That was the reason Eislyn came to this orphanage a year ago. Eislyn was worried that Adarine had suffered the same fate, but there was no indication of such from the slumbering Eislyn. She ran away. The lady looks uncomfortable. Well, we believe she's ran away. she's not actually under our care, but rather her aunt, who brings her here with her often. We try to give Miss Nightingale to file a missing persons report, but she insists that Adrian is okay. I'm sure she knows her niece better than we do. I see. Well, thank you. The lady nodded and returned to the children who had been watching the conversation. Eislyn left and stood in the street for a moment. Well, I don't suppose I could get a hint, could I? There was a silence in her mind. Eislyn laughed. This is a challenge for me alone, huh? Well, I'm up for it. Let's see. If I were to run away, where would I go? Eislyn began to stroll down the street, glancing about and taking in the view. As she went where she checked out possible hidey holes. Okay, the reason why I couldn't pronounce it because the sentence itself didn't really click to me. She even found a litter of, oh dear, of the kittens with their mum at one point cuddled up to a blanket inside a basket. Outside. Hello there, darling. Someone taking care of you? She petted the meowing kittens and the master purred softly. They seemed used to people, so Eislyn guessed someone was keeping them in secret. Alright, go back to sleep. Sorry to disturb you. Aww. I thought they were like abandoned or something. That's why I was a bit upset for them. Most of the afternoon was spent like this. Eislyn went down many streets and checked many possible hiding places. However, none of them were occupied by Adrian. Eislyn was still in high spirits though. She knew the odds were stacked against her, but she had time. You think that, but she does not have time. It's already too late. She wondered how many days it would take to find her. Adrian, broken silence. I do wonder how long this final story goes on for. So I'm going to leave this off here, folks. I did say at the beginning of this episode that it would be the final episode, but I didn't know that the final story is something of itself. I thought something would be unlocked during the main game, but this is the unlocked thing from the main game itself. It just didn't follow through from the main game. It's just on its own tangent. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully the next time will be the final time of this horrific, I mean not horrific as in bad, horrific as in its horror landscape. Sorry about that. Thank you all so much for watching and take care of yourselves.